This has been driving me up a wall for the past few weeks. I thought that a lot of folks were just talking out of their ass, you fill in the rest. And it looks like I was right, because I just saw a post recently by former toy animator Henry Thurlow that kind of confirms what I was really feeling off with when it comes to this subject. Before we get to that, what is the subject? You see on the thumbnail, over-animation. This is ridiculous, because not only does it stem from the last episode of One Piece, where you have, of course, the Zoro and Lucci, you have the great fight scenes with Bonnie against the fodder, but mainly you have Vincent Chansard putting on a show with Monkey D's Luffy versus Kizaru, putting on just a masterclass spectacle that should be viewed honestly on the big screen. But even before that, there was a post that dropped this, and I quote, "Which anime has the most over animation?" You have One Piece with Garp and the Galaxy Impact. You have Jujutsu Kaisen JJK with season 2 Mahoraga versus Sukuna. Then you have Demon Slayer, one of the biggest claims to fame for the entire series of Demon Slayer, when you have the end of season 1 when Tanjiro and Nezuko fight against Rui. And then you have Solo Leveling, aka Wolo Leveling, where you have the end of season 2, you have Sung Jin Woo, my boy, Sung Jin Woo versus the Ant King, who later on becomes Beirut. And I'm sitting like, wait. What you mean by this? Over animation. Like, this is the first time I've actually seen the term over animation probably ever. Huh? Wait, over animation? What you mean? As if like Solo Leveling, Demon Slayer, JJK, and One Piece should lower the quality of their animation so they're no longer over animated, which would make them better as series, as viewing experiences. The quality of the animation needs to go lower so the viewing experience is better. It's like, wait, dog, this flabbergasted me, because as a One Piece old head, I know exactly what it looks like to have One Piece be under animated or at animation at par, quote unquote. I've seen the arcs, I've been there, I know it all, and I am super grateful for seeing Wano Country and Egghead Island as they are now, the movies too. JJK season 2 slaps. There were problems when it came to the studio itself and how they treat the animators and so on, but the end result is undeniable. JJK season 2 is going to be one of the most well-recognized and remembered arcs in all of shonen. This arc, in terms of animation quality, was off the charts, was phenomenal. You can argue compete with the old school One Punch Man season 1 days, honestly. Then you have, Demon Slayer Ufotable that put this series on the map. The series wasn't even like the top 15 best-selling manga. Out comes Ufotable Demon Slayer, and it's surpassing One Piece and breaking, shattering records beyond belief. And then Solo Leveling, which has recently been the most top-voted show on Crunchyroll. The success of Solo Leveling is now going to open the door for other webtoons to be animated. You think that would happen if they were animated correctly or under-animated? Getting that Boruto treatment, getting that T-Bait treatment, that Tower of God season 2 treatment, yeah? So I saw this post and it just drove me up a wall. I had to respond, like, bro, what are you talking about, bro? This is stupid. But wait, KingOfLightning, no. You fool. Look at the responses. Oh, Jesus, man. Overanimation is when there's too much stuff going on, too much complexity or exaggeration, that it harms what the scene is trying to convey. This can be a harmful change to the tone of the scene or how easy it is to follow what is going on. Then you have Nah, I Feel Him. The overuse of bright colors and sparks is definitely being overused. Everyone trying to copy Demon Slayer. Overanimation is when Zoro does a slash in the manga and the anime makes it seem like an explosion, or Garp doing a punch and there's suddenly a random explosion of colors. Now I agree, some scenes can be made very over the top. Like imagine seeing that type of animation in Vinland Saga, implying that Vinland Saga would be inferior if Vinland Saga had Solo Leveling quality of animation when it comes to the fight scenes. Or Ufotable steps in and then they make Vinland Saga look like on average Fate Stay Night. Bro, I can't make this video too long because I'm about to rage like it's the old school fairy tale days. So I promise you, bro. I promise you that this was dumb. It was almost like a collective hive mind in the negative zone. Just a complete unappreciation of how much work, how much time, and the benefits of Sakuga animation, especially on these levels, but I digress. I continue. No, I kind of agree. Something less is more. A lot of One Piece scenes these days are doing too much with flashy lights. Old school One Piece was... Same way in film can have too many edits or too many complicated, interesting shots. And then you have someone post an old school scene with my man Spike over here. Modern visual effects does not equal animation quality. Minimal frames, maximum efficiency, fluid movements, sync, sound effect. Looking at Toei are all important. Too many shows have been getting by with flashy, which is what this guy means by overanimation. Look, I can go on and on, okay? I can go on and on. I really could. Him adding sound effects is a whole different matter. Animation is animation, right? Toei sound effects need work for sure, without a doubt. I think most Toei fans say that, yeah, the sound effects are, they're not that good right now. Overanimation doesn't mean that it's hard to follow. A fluid fight scene or a fluid fight sequence that we see, that he mentions with Cowboy Bebop, that is a good hand-to-hand fight scene, easy to follow. On the flip side, some crazy space dandy shenanigans that are hard to comprehend doesn't take away from the quality of the animated scene, particularly if that's part of the reason why we're getting that scene where it's supposed to be hard to understand. For example, in the latest episode of One Piece, the fight scene that Bonnie has with the fodder, that fight scene is way more in lockstep with the Cowboy Bebop scene that the person was referring to in the responses to my Twitter posts. That is clearly not the best animated scene in the episode, even though it is an easy to follow, well choreographed scene with Bonnie and the fodder. And fundamentally, it makes a lot more sense to have a well choreographed fight scene with Bonnie fighting fodder in a hand-to-hand situation compared to Luffy and Kizaru, where you have a 9 Looney Tunes deity and a man that moves at the speed of light. Fundamentally speaking, it would make more sense for them to have a crazy, over-the-top, hard to follow, bombastic and flashy fight compared to just throw hands and look smooth. If we use the logic that people are talking about here for overanimation, then when we see that one fight scene between Yoruichi versus Asuka Naklevar in Bleach, and then we have her do the Shunko Raijin Seke, and you have the impact frames of each of the orbs sort of activate and have those black and white flashes, that would be overanimation, because in that 1 millisecond, you're not necessarily processing all those flashes like that, and you're not getting a clear depiction of what's going on. And because you're not getting a clear depiction of what's going on, and there's all these flash lighting effects, as a result, it's not a smooth hand-to-hand fighting scene, even though these are shinigamis, not just hand-to-hand fighters, and there's many different power systems in Bleach. No. Because the flashing lights, lights, oh, Kanye. That, I think, based on what they are saying, I could be misinterpreting here, but based on some interpretations of what overanimated is, that would qualify as overanimation. Even though the animated scene is really good, because it's hard to understand, or it's visually cluttered when she activates her ability, showing you just how much of a natural force of nature she is by commanding this lightning. No. That's overanimation. And this came to a head, obviously, again, when Monkey D. Luffy versus Kizaru dropped. Oh, impact frame. Oh my God, it's so flashy. Even though I would argue that when you look at Vincent Chansard's run through of why he did what he did, almost everything is done with a purpose and an intent in mind, even the impact frames. Could you imagine how underwhelming Gear 5 would be if all we just got was smooth hand-to-hand fight scenes and we never actually maximized the potential of the Gear 5 form in anime, which they have done time and time again in fantastic ways, i.e. episode 1074. One of the best animated fight sequences of all time, even beating the smooth hand-to-hand fight scenes that we've seen in some different series. I digress. I was starting to get more gray hair as a result of reading some of these comments, so I just, had to pull back. And then later on that day or the week, I did see a post by Kira, who's a very well-known person on Twitter, on X, and then he says, "What the F does overanimating even mean, because some other dude just parrots the talking about, oh, overanimated, oh my god, overanimated, it's just too much, I can't follow what's going on. And I'm like, bro, 18,000 likes, 1.3 interactions or views. I'm like, yeah, of course. This is what I'm saying. Calling Luffy versus Kizaru overanimated makes no damn sense. And then once again, the comment section, people are like, oh, you don't understand, man. Because the problem is that when folks say you don't understand, there's like 19 different interpretations of what understanding is. But then again, it's internet. No one has a clear depiction of what is overanimation. I think in the grand scheme of things, it's just a way of dunking on high quality animation that at times can be incoherent or flashy, and then so like certain details are missing that flashiness. But that being said, that doesn't mean that they're over animated to the point where, hey, we're better off lowering the quality of animation. And look, I'll be fair, okay? I will be fair. I'll be fair. There are times where sometimes the animation is so overwhelming that people want certain effects to be lowered. For example, when Luffy does the Conquer-Sucking Fusion onto Kaido for the first time, hits him, you have the flashing golden lights, you have the music, you have Kaido sliding, you have the cherry blossoms, or I guess the gold blossoms, and so on and so forth. Then folks said, okay, that was too much, because they couldn't tell what was going on. And even though I myself really like that scene as it is, because of people's complaints, they did tone down the aura effects during the Onigashima raid. People just can't see what's going on. Not that they can't tell what's going on, but they can't see what's going on. It's like House of the Dragon season 1, where a lot of these darker scenes, you don't know what's really going on because the scenes are so dark, pitch black even, you just don't know what they're doing exactly. And I guess you could argue it's kind of like that, where the scenes are so bright and vivid, you just can't see. But keep in mind that this would apply if the animation quality was lower, meaning that the quality of the animation that we see in that scene for Luffy and Kaido, that scene is still a high quality scene. But the issue with that scene is not the quality of animation, it's the usage of a certain effect during that scene. The animation itself is supreme quality animation and it's great, but the problem is that people are saying that no, we have to lower the quality of animation as a whole, because it's not just the flashing lights, it's also the use of impact frames, aura effects, choreography is too fast, so on and so forth. It's not just one specific issue, it's a cornucopia of issues that makes it so if you remove a lot of these things, you just get a lower quality product. But again, I already read comments saying that, hey, listen, yeah, back in the day, it was better animated. And that right there is sacrilegious. Garb Galaxy's impact is you can see everything what's going on as clear as day. The same thing for JJK season 2 for the most part. The same thing goes for Soul Leveling for the most part. The fight between the Ant King and Sung Jin Woo in Soul Leveling at the end of season 2 is a pretty flashy fight, and not everything is easy to follow, but it's still a top tier, not over animated, a pure Sakuga great fight scene. The same thing goes for what might be the best animated fight scene in animation, at least some folks have it that high, as the GOAT of fight scenes, and that is Demon Slayer's Uzui versus Gyutaro. There are portions of that fight where it's really hard to tell what's going on because the flashy explosives and the techniques that Uzui's utilizing, the crazy bloodbending moves that Gyutaro is pulling out, there is a lot that is visually stimulating and again hard to follow, but there is a lot going on in that fight. The flashing sparks and all that bombastic flair is also a part of Uzui's character, which is only, again, it only matches the moments. So yeah, you may not comprehend everything or you have to pause certain things to really see what's going on in full detail, but that in of itself is not over animation. You can say it's over the top, but over the top doesn't seem to be a negative connotation like over animation is. What is colloquially used by animators themselves. I must thank Henry Thurlow because Henry Thurlow did actually have a comment on this, and thank goodness he did, because it does set, I think, a proper perspective of what real over animation is. Not the flashy lights and effects, not the lack of smooth fight scene animation, X was the other. No. Henry Thurlow said, and I quote, "While always a matter of opinion," fair enough, fine. While always a matter of opinion, overanimated is generally a phrase among animators referring to character acting with too many poses. Example, a character says hi, but strikes 10 poses quickly while doing so. It does not refer to smooth animation and fantastic action scenes. So Overanimation, based on what Henry is talking about, everything I mentioned before about JJK, One Piece, Solo Leveling, and Demon Slayer, the vast majority of scenes, they wouldn't constitute as over-animated scenes. No. He does say it's a matter of opinion, which is, you know, some leeway there, but nowhere in the scenes of Sung Jin-woo versus the Ice Elves, or Sung Jin-woo going through the Demon Castle, or Luffy on Egghead Island going zany, or Shanks going extra hard on Kid, or Garp going ballistic on Full Outlet Island, or let's say with Demon Slayer, all of the Hashira pouncing on Muzan, or Uzi versus Gyutaro like I mentioned before, or of course JJK season 2 as a whole, Toji going ham on everybody, Sukuna going hard on Mahoraga and vice versa. When you have these zany over-the-top what the F fights that are going on, which is where the vast majority of the high-quality animation scenes are, this does not fit what Henry Thurlow explained to be, what is at least talked about by animators, to be over-animated. Henry, yes, it is appealed authority, fair enough, fine. And again, it is a matter of opinion, fair enough. But I think that this makes a lot more sense because the very same animation that some folks are complaining about is also what's leading to the tremendous success of these shows. And going for the alternative to overanimation, based on what the people online are talking about, but not Henry, not what actual animators talk about, then the success of these shows would diminish without a doubt. Even that very same Congress Hockey Infusions fight scene with Monkey D. Luffy versus Kaido, I think that wouldn't qualify as overanimated. Not even that would. The only scene that comes to mind, really, honestly, is the last season of Demon Slayer, where Muzan is walking towards the Ubuyashiki mansion. I think that scene, you could argue, is over animated because it's a very Bollywood style animation. You know that one meme of the woman enters the room and there's all these cuts and effects and splices, and all she's doing is just entering the room. That's all she's doing. That, I think, is akin to what Henry's talking about here. It's the unnecessary need for animation to exist in this particular time when all that's happening is introduction. When Muzan is just walking over to the mansion, there's all these cuts, the fog effects. It's a really long process of Muzan just walking over, his reflection on the water, the steam behind him, hands in pockets, Shimona. That scene, I think, is probably the one scene I can think of as of recent memory that like fits the bill of overanimated. He's just walking. He's just walking. Overanimation. You may have seen this subject before. I'm aware of it. I've had my 2 cents on it, honestly. I could be all base, but this is what I think right now. The beginning after the end fans, Tower of God season 2 fans, absolutely would sacrifice their souls to some elder demon if it meant they could get the series that they love with the same animation quality as Solo Leveling, Demon Slayer, One Piece, and JJK season 2. Absolutely. But that is my stance on the subject matter at hand. If you enjoy your boys' video content, give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell to join the notification squad, and I'll see you guys and gals on the flip side.
See you. Bye-bye.